I have never had a project that caused me as much grief as this one. I think the reason it has given me so much trouble is because the general consensus surrounding this work and what it's about is just so inexcusably wrong. I think what has happened is that a few people have picked up this work, glanced at it, made videos concerning what they think the work is about, and everyone else has latched onto these points, and that has become the common consensus about The Boys. Its plot, its characters, its themes, its quality, just everything. And I just find that so wrong and so unjust that I can't even begin to think about tackling it, because I know the people I want to talk to about this comic don't really know anything about it. At least with any other work that I had a disagreement with someone on, I could, metaphorically speaking, put their glasses on, and I might come out thinking, okay, maybe these glasses are a little rose-colored, maybe there's a smudge on the lens, maybe they're the wrong prescription, but no, I see what you saw. Okay, I may think it's wrong, I may think you've misinterpreted something, but I see what you saw. With this one, I don't see what you saw because it's not there. So how to tackle this problem? I couldn't do the video essay that I wanted to do regarding the book, the adaptation, and even the arguments surrounding it, because I would be working from a point of misconception. So for posterity, I decided that I would make a series of videos going through the comics storyline by storyline, just laying out the work just as plain to see, so that when I eventually get to tackling the other things about the work, its adaptation, and all the arguments surrounding it, I would have a strong framework to start from. So yeah, the working title of this little series of videos is, If You Won't Read The Boys, I Will Read It To You. The name of the game, spanning issues 1 through 6. These are obviously the establishing issues setting up the world and characters, and to hit the ground running, I really don't get the it's shit accusations, because this is masterful setup. Again, I get not liking Garth Ennis's writing, but there's a big difference between not liking something and something being of objectively bad quality. And again, this is probably what makes me a little bit defensive about this work, because if there's one thing Garth Ennis can do, it's fucking write. We basically have 3 major points of view in this storyline, with lots of little setups in each of them. And those 3 points of view are Huey, Annie, and Billy. Huey's girlfriend Robin is killed by A-Train, and this is why the show is better argument. It is just dumb. Show A-Train is better because he ran into Robin not while he was doing superhero work, but while he was on his way back from getting drugs. So that makes it a worse and selfish transgression, whereas comic A-Train was actually stopping a supervillain and it was an accident. Again, not criticising the show here, the A-Train super steroid addiction plot is very good and actually makes some really clever satire about the pressures put on professional athletes and the celebrity culture surrounding professional athleticism. But this argument just misses the whole point. Ennis doesn't like superheroes. He thinks they're moronic, and whether you agree with him or not, the reasons he has for believing what he believes are legitimate, and again, none of what he says is actually wrong. This comic is about satirizing superheroes, bringing them into the real world and asking what would it be like if they actually existed. Ennis was one of the first comic book writers to actually say, hey, collateral damage would kind of be a thing. So one of his main points is, if superhero work was a legitimate field, it would involve a hell of a lot of things like this, which would then be covered up by the higher-ups, like we see happening in other organisations with brand legitimacy that fuck up. If you've ever seen that Because Science YouTuber, you know, the guy that breaks down superhero feats and the physics surrounding them, and why things wouldn't happen the way the movie or comic portrays it as happening, well, That's basically one of the things that's happening here, because the application of these superpowers would probably need a great deal of knowledge surrounding physics in order to just not cause a hell of a catastrophic incident. And these are just normal people who have been pumped full of this stuff and given carte blanche to catch the bad guys. And also there's the other point that the supervillains are just as controlled as the heroes by the corporations. So the point that he was actually catching a supervillain and it was an accident kind of thing is, again, double bullshit. But anyway, in regards to how these superpowers would actually function in the real world, this kind of thing would happen a lot, as is portrayed in the plane incident in the comic, which we'll get to. But the show's change in regards to A-Train not killing Robin due to the natural collateral damage that superheroics would cause is a sacrifice of the wider message for a more character-focused narrative. Again, this is not a criticism of the show. That's one of the better aspects of the show, but the argument comes from a sense of ignorance towards the comic and what it is actually about, rather than anything particularly to do with the show itself. Anyway, Huey's girlfriend is killed by A-Train, and Ennis really does some great character work showing just how lost Huey is and how he just doesn't know what he's going to do with his life. His reaction to this is so visceral and raw. He catches the eye of Billy Butcher, whose position is nebulous, but let's call him a semi-official CIA Black Ops leader. And he catches the eye of Billy because he didn't take any money for Robin's death. Billy's point of view introduces us to several elements in the story. All the boys' members, which we'll go over, Monkey, who is important plot-wise but not really worth bringing up other than that, and Raynor. Now remember how in the last video I was deeply amused, if highly frustrated, about the show's decision to essentially make the US government essentially just another of Vought's victims, if a complicit one. But the show's ethos seems to be that the government is hapless in the face of the actual villain. Aspects of it has done bad things, but the good bits are held in a stranglehold by the evil megacorporations. Shrek and Donkey laugh ensues. The comic has no such fantasies. This is how we are introduced to the government and the people working for it. Ennis utilises his skills with dialogue incredibly well to paint a clear picture of how this world and its power really work. Whereas contrast that with Raynor in the show, who is a good person for the good, flawed government, fighting the good fight for the good people, but again is ultimately hamstrung by the intervening evil. A interesting choice by the show, to say the least. Huey finds out he's actually pretty good at the job. He's innovative, a quick and creative thinker, a quick study, and while not unfazed by the horrors he sees, is able to deal with them reasonably well, at least initially. And that is a very important part of his characterization and character journey. Then he gets his first taste of disillusionment as Billy Butcher forcibly injects him with an altered version of Compound V, and as we established in the previous video, leaves, after quite explicitly telling Billy Butcher to fuck off.
Before the series is over, he's standing up to Billy Butcher, which takes him about 6 years worth of comics to get to that same point.
And unlike Huey in the show, who is quite easily manipulated by Billy Butcher bringing up Robin,
you walk away now, and you will never get payback for Robin. You'll spend the rest of your life sitting on your ass in fucking regret. Now, is that what you want?
Huey in the comic knows Billy's game and tells him to not dare bring up Robin, and once again, leaves.
He's actively deciding to join the boys instead of essentially being forced into the team.
I don't care if that clip annoys you, you will be seeing it quite frequently throughout the course of these videos. How frequently? Well, that depends on just how bad the conception of this character actually is. And considering Huey is my favourite character in the comic, Well, spoiler alert, you're probably going to be seeing it a lot. I'm serious. I hope you understand why I am so vexed by this, because it's not even a misreading. Nobody with a reading level beyond primary school could misread this. Anyway, Annie is similarly going through it as we are introduced to the superhero team, the Seven, through her, and the theme of women in the industry, which is something I will be tackling in regards to Annie's character, and how the show's attempt to do it, well, while its heart is definitely in the right place, is far inferior. Both Annie and Hughie have parallel arcs, which both end with them leaving their respective jobs and causes because the world has taught them a lesson about the world, power, and how you as one person will not be able to change it. You have the choice to assimilate, leave, or die. And we leave off the first arc with Hughie still not fully decided on taking the job, but determined to stay longer to work out if it's something he wants to do.
Essentially being forced into the team.
My God, there is this thing online, okay, that has happened more and more in recent years, and I feel like I'm going insane, right? It's these people, and I feel like they learned how to write and formulate their thoughts, their godforsaken thoughts, but they never learned how to read. How did you learn to write without learning how to read?
And this version of Hughie, despite being a meek person, is more self-assured and, as a result, is entirely aware of how good he could be at the job and is convinced, at least for the moment, by Butcher of the good he could do within it. And that indecision about whether or not to fully commit to the job and, as a result, fully commit to / participate in the cruel reality of the world is going to be a key part of his character journey and development. Only 66 issues to go.